Na 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 streamlining. Got some great news. There's some new Thomas stock in store at my local favourite shop. Let's just call it that. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, okay, so we've got a bit more Trackmaster, well, what do you call it, motorised going on here, but there's only a few extra really. I'm looking for something special. I'll have a better look at that soon, but there's something more exciting that I saw. Okay, well that's okay. I get excited by that. That's, well, that's semi-okay, but oh yeah. Oh yeah, look at this here. The Golden Thomas. Hey, oh yeah, and this is new. That looks very nice as well. What's that one, Gustavo? These are nice 3-packs. I'll tell you what, I'll be getting that because I'm a Thomas collector and I'm a hoarder. I'm a hoarder when it comes to Thomas, but not TP, okay? I like that as well. Oh yeah. I heard people talking about this stuff, but I didn't. Oh, there's another one. Oh, they just keep coming. They just keep coming. Oh yeah. I won't be greedy. I won't take all of them, or else you'll say, "Oh, he's horrible." But yeah, it looks like. Actually, what's this one here? Is that something special and new? I think it is. Oh yeah, okay. This is nice. At least I'm starting to see some more new stock here. But if I look down here, unfortunately, this should be Thomas area here. It's little people, Paw Patrol. Go away, Paw Patrol. More little people, the nice Percy 6-in-1. This is one of the best sets. One of the best sets, and it's a great price in Australia. But, you know, little people snuck in there. Oh, I'm not seeing really what I want to see, but I tell you what, finding that there, that is Thomas Gold, Thomas Gold. The shops are actually extremely quiet. It's just a bit, well, a bit spooky. I'm looking here for something that's gone wrong. I actually found... I shouldn't tell you this, I found a second faceless James, so there must be like a problem going on with those. Okay, I'm just going to just scoot that there for a sec. Yeah, no, I'm not really seeing... Oh, of course, I'm seeing all the, yeah, the same old, same old. No, nothing there that special. Sometimes in the toy department you'll find things hidden behind things because, well, there's a bit of a system where if you want to buy something you haven't got the money for it, well, you put it and hide it somewhere else. Well, I'm not surprised finding Paw Patrol here. I don't know what that thing is there. It's a numbat or something. Don't want to know about that, but there's something that has been really difficult to get in the Thomas realm, and that's the Thomas Trackmaster push-alongs. I've got to think how to say that. It's just been so much empty peggerage. Sometimes you'll see a scrappy Thomas left behind. I have really struggled. I am collecting these ones. I have really struggled to find these, and there is a Black James, and I do believe on the Black James that the artwork is wrong because it shows a red James here, although this is Thomas, and it's got the Black James inside. Maybe I had a cutaway then, or maybe I didn't, but I do believe it's an error. So that's the Thomas sell in my favourite retailer. Nice to see some new stock here. It is depleted a bit. I'm not really seeing anything big, and that worries me. Really, the only thing which is big there is that wonderful Percy 6-in-1 set. 29 bucks, 29 bucks, bargain. It's so quiet in here. It really is. Normally it's way busier than this. While I'm here, I'll show you something else. Up here was where the Zuru metal machines are basically like a $1 Hot Wheels was for sale, but they've all gone. If I go around the other side here, the Hot Wheels stock's actually pretty good. Often it's been depleted to empty peggerage. There's a little bit of empty peggerage there. That's sort of an extension of the Hot Wheels area. Coming along here, there's more Hot Wheels here, getting into their version of monster trucks, without saying Monster Jam, because Monster Jam got, well, their own thing now, I believe. That's an example of that. Okay, they broke away from Mattel. Hope I'm correct there. And this here is the, well, where the Disney Cars die-cast used to be. Past tense, used to be. I mean, that's something I just don't understand. How can you make any money when you've got nothing there selling? There's the bigger Mack truck here, and I believe that takes the die-cast vehicles, not that you'd be buying them here. There's also the smaller one here, which takes the wonderful little die-cast minis. There are a few of those here, but they're all just on the shelf here. Oh, crikeys, Percy. Fancy meeting you here. Well, we might put you back in the right spot. I actually love these toys. I never looked at them on my YouTube channel. I think this is one of the great little small toys. It's a really, really fantastic small toy. Far better than Thomas Minis. I'll do the right thing by Percy, put him back on the pegs, but I'll put him behind Thomas because, well, Thomas is #1 engine. I was going to talk about Mattel and Hasbro's share price over a 5-year period and 3-month period, but there has been a black swan event, so maybe it's best to skip that. But let's take note that Hasbro has had a big pull down. Mind you, there has been a bit of a recovery so far. Whether or not that's sustainable is a big question. I have been doing videos about panic buying that's going on, which seems to be getting deeper and deeper. That led me to Google Trends, and I could see a relationship between the panic buying and what's being searched online. So does Google Trends indicate to us what's popular and what's being purchased? Let's apply this to Thomas and Friends as a search worldwide 2004 to present, and what we look at is an interesting graph that shows bubbles of interest around December time, because that's when people are buying the toys and searching for them. The good years are 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. 2009 starts to show a decline, and 2010 is really the last time Thomas scored above 75 on this chart, and from there on something came off the rails for Thomas and Friends as a search. Just thinking back to 2010, that's a very interesting little time frame. It was Misty Island rescue time in the Thomas and Friends stories. It was really the first hint that there's going to be stories away from Sodor Island, and really Sodor Island drift started to kick in past this point. It was also a time when iPads became really popular. 2010 Christmas was deemed the iPad Christmas. And I remember my daughter was about 5 years old, so she had 5 years of her life without screens. And then from there on, in a sense, she was, like everyone else is today, a person who is heavily connected to screens. And there's one other thing that was going on in that time frame of 2010. Can you remember what it is? It's when Chuggington was around. That's when you had the fight between the red and the blue. And we'll speak about that very soon. But just thinking about more recent things, especially December 2019, do you remember what I showed on my YouTube channel? And I can flash it up here. Do you remember how astonished I was at the stock levels that were going on in store? In fact, it was the worst that I'd ever seen around a Christmas time. And that's when people are coming out and buying these toys. Put it this way, it's no secret Mattel would know when people are buying these toys. The Google Trends show us this, yet across all the retailers that I go to in Sydney, Australia, which is a big city, it was really difficult to find good stocks of Thomas and Friends toys, and that sadly isn't that unusual these days. You can interpret empty shelves in two ways. It's either a chronic undersupply of stock and a breakdown of the supply chain, or it's a extremely popular toy which is being overbought versus the supply. Now that I'm looking at Google Trends, searching for Thomas and Friends is definitely off the boil, but I can also see there is a chronic problem with the supply chain of the Thomas and Friends toys. So I did another search of Thomas the Tank, and I was starting to see the same styles of data sets. I could see decaying interests via Google Trends, and this really had me thinking, what's going on here? Is this also happening across other popular toys and brands? So I searched up Nerf as a query, and I can see a different data set. I can also see bubbles of interest around December, and this seems to happen every year. I looked at Lego, and it was very similar to Nerf. I could see the bubble of interest around December time. Hot Wheels was very interesting to look at. I could see there was that bubble of interest around December as a web search, and also notice it's on an upward trend, but under a YouTube search, it was a very different story. Sometimes there'd be a bubble of interest mid-year, and then other times there'd be a bubble of interest at December. Very curious. My Little Pony's very interesting. It looks like My Little Pony bolted from the stables, and it's now going back into the stables for some time. I searched Tonka Truck. I could see the Christmas or December bubble of interest that seems to happen every year. I searched up Airfix, and that's the little plastic kits that you paint yourself, lovely little things. Very popular searching around December. Lightning McQueen is very interesting. It's popular around the film release times. I know Lightning McQueen is popular because if the cars are on the pegs, often it's Lightning McQueen who is sold out first. Peppa Pig had a strong crawl out of the mud puddle for some years, but it seems like it's now sliding back into the mud puddle again. Paw Patrol did surprise me. It looks like it's got some nice strong data here on Google Trends. Now, how often have I showed you that Paw Patrol toys are hard up against the Thomas & Friends area, and I see that across multiple stores. So maybe Mattel's hoping that if it's hard up against something that's quite popular, there'll be a little bit of rub off onto Thomas & Friends, but I'm not seeing that in the data of the Thomas & Friends Google Trends. And maybe one of the most amazing ones is Bluey. Now, I spoke about Bluey in a previous video. I said keep an eye on Bluey. Look at the Google Trends of people searching up Bluey. Amazing. Now, let's go down a very deep bunny hole and take a look at a children's television show that was based around trains. It was a rival to Thomas & Friends. It was called Chuggington. Now, was there ever going to be enough room in the world to have two children's television shows based around trains? Okay, Chuggington as a search term. The series kicked off in 2008, and it was actually quite a successful series out of the box. By Christmas 2010, it was nearly at peak search results, and by 2011, it was at 100. Then there's a steady decline over time. I think there are only 5 seasons of Chuggington made. I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong. And rumours I read, it is going back into production in 2020. I've got some very fond memories of looking at the Chuggington toys on my YouTube channel way back. And as I remember, the toys were always a little bit cheaper than the Thomas toys, and they presented in a really nice way as well. What was really nice about the Chuggington toys is they presented and looked just like the characters you saw on the animated TV show. But the very frustrating aspect to the die-cast version of these toys was they would not connect to the Thomas & Friends take-and plays of the time that used a magnetic coupler. The first version of the die-cast Chuggington toys were made by Learning Curve. As I remember, the little toys were fantastic, but the playsets were fairly weak. I never liked the Chuggington track system that came with the playsets. To me, it was more like a blue version of something you'd run your Hot Wheels car down. Tomy took over the Chuggington toys. They changed the die-cast chuggers to being plastic tops with metal bottoms. They still looked great. They had fantastic details. They also changed the track format, and it was an improvement, but it was still a tad awkward. And by this time, the Chuggington franchise started to get some very serious character bloat. There was also the interactive chuggers. They were a larger scale, they were made of plastic, they could talk to each other, and again, the best aspect about this toy was the detail. It looked exactly like the characters in the Chuggington TV show. The thing I didn't like about them was that strange coupling system, and I wasn't quite into the playsets. The track just spooked me. It wasn't like train tracks. There was also Chuggington Wood. Those toys were also very impressive. They looked fantastic. They were a little bit bigger in scale versus the Thomas & Friends wooden railway toys. And best of all is they had a magnetic coupler, so finally your Chuggington toys could connect with your Thomas & Friends wooden railway toys. Although the magnets on the chuggers were a little bit taller, standing up off the rails versus your Thomas & Friends toys. Where I live in Australia, we never saw the Tomy Chuggington toys. People tell me they were excellent, and we never saw the Buckman toy trains based around the chuggers' characters. And many people have said to me they're some of the nicest Chuggington toys that you can grab. And just thinking about this, it reminds me that I've always said that I felt Chuggington never had that core singular character like Thomas & Friends does with Thomas the Tank, and that's why I developed Action Thomas. And that brings back some really fond memories of how my son reacted to Action Thomas, which was based around the Action Chugger train. And so many people ask me, Leo, whatever happened to Action Thomas? I had a giveaway years back. I'm pretty sure the winner of that giveaway is somewhere in New York State in USA. And from my knowledge, that toy has never resurfaced or been seen online. It's somewhere in someone's toy collection or at the tip by now. Let's hope it's not the latter, because it was a complete an incredible custom one-off toy. So in this fantastic trip down memory lane, let's go back to Google Trends and compare a search of Thomas and Friends versus Chuggington. Okay, this is interesting. Look at the dates again, and this is the popularity of a search term in English worldwide. And in choosing terms, I was picking off the top autocomplete terms when I was typing in Thomas and Friends. But if I change the search to Thomas and A-N-D, Friends, versus Chuggington, I get a very different result here. Always take note of the 2010 time in this. Then I did Thomas the Tank versus Brewster, and there's the search results there. Then I did Thomas and Friends versus Chuggington, and this is set up as British television series. And from that slightly different search criteria, I get a totally different result. Another search I did was Thomas the Tank Toys versus Chuggington Toys. And again, look at the 2010 era, what's happening there. As comical relief, I typed in Thomas the Tank Engine versus Percy the Small Engine, and unfortunately for the Percy fans, Percy basically doesn't rank versus Thomas the Tank. But I think we already knew that, didn't we? Yet the toy company seems to be a bit behind. And remember, this is looking at search terms and how popular they are over a period of time. This has nothing to do with sales data related to the toys. I'm hoping there are some in my audience who play with Google Trends far more than me. Is it really an indicator of something that's popular or something that's unpopular? Now, I did a search of Bob the Builder as a search term. I'm not going to show you it here. I want you to go to Google Trends and take a look yourself. We know they tried to rehatch Bob the Builder in a CGI form that had all the toys and everything. Was that a success? Well, most people would say it was a total flop. And if you go and look at Google Trends, the trends also indicate to us it was a total flop. But what's really spooked me was when I stumbled across those searches for Thomas and Friends and Thomas the Tank and seeing that data decaying in the way that it is. And there's that tip over point from 2010 to 2011. And I'm thinking, wow, has Mattel purchased a brand that's basically a dying brand? And then that leads to the query, has Mattel done its absolute best to improve and make Thomas and Friends brand as good as it possibly can? Now, I want my audience to have their say on this. I think it's a very important question to ask, considering the data I'm seeing related to Thomas and Friends, Thomas the Tank on Google Trends is looking very tragic. What exactly happened back in 2010 that seems to have derailed Thomas the Tank from the tracks? Is it Sodor Island drift that I speak about so often? Is it the iPad generation that kicked off around about that time? Or is it as simple as a brand that is now completely run out of steam, which is stuck on a branch line to extinction? I'm sure my Thomas and Friends audience are going to exactly detail to me what has caused this downfall. I know people will ask me, Leo, what's your thoughts about the Golden Thomas? And I'm going to give you a perspective on this as a toy collector and someone who's seen a lot of Thomas toys. Let's just give it a spin and see how it looks when it's running. Yes, I really had to get out of the box to start to understand how much more awesome this could have been if it was done just in a slightly different way, and maybe you're going to agree with me or maybe you're going to disagree with me. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a very nice toy. My advice is do not unbox it, put it away for a much better day. When you look at this toy, what's the thing that's catching your eye the most? Do you see where I'm going with this? Maybe if I introduce a little friend in here without causing a train wreck, you'll start to understand what I'm talking about. There's the special edition Golden Thomas Take and Play 2014. What catches your eye on that, and what doesn't catch your eye on that Golden Thomas there? Maybe if I showed like that, imagine if that Golden Thomas Trackmaster was all nice and shiny and gold over the whole body and not just the part up near his face. I honestly think that's a massively missed opportunity, but hey, we can't reverse history now. What is done has been done. Anyway, it is a very nice Trackmaster 3-pack. Try to resist the temptation of pulling it out of the box and playing with it. It's much nicer if you keep it in box as a nice special Thomas. Just thinking about toy collecting and keeping things in box. Well, here's a Thomas here that I saw going for hundreds of dollars online in box. People were making out it's very special. It has got a bit of a different special face. It is a very unusual Thomas, and it made me come back and re-look at this toy. I have got others of these in box, and I thought maybe I've got a better investment than gold if I pick the right Thomases and never unbox them. Or am I just dreaming here? So there's the Winged Thomas. Yeah, what's your thoughts about that? It's funny, when I first saw that, I just thought it's a very unusual Thomas. Very different. And which one catches your eye? Would you prefer to have that? Or, and I'll just get it back here, this wonderful golden Thomas there. Let's go back to the Winged Thomas. Whoa, I've nearly forgotten how to do this. There's the Winged Thomas again. Yeah, the Winged Thomas is an interesting one, and the Golden Thomas once more. Which one do you reckon would be better off keeping in box? There's been many different variations of Trackmaster 2 Thomases, lots actually, and this one is very different. When I first got this one, what caught my eye more was the Annie and Clarabelle. Mind you, they were just sort of sticker Fridays often on these. They were all crooked and stuff. I think mine's been in the pool. I shouldn't have done that, hey, but now I look at this again, and considering I was seeing it going for hundreds of dollars online, you can transform this Thomas to being a normal looking Thomas by doing that, without causing a train wreck, of course. And then he's sort of back to normal, and you know, maybe that special face in him and the fact that he sort of transforms does make this quite a special Thomas, and I sort of missed that when I first bought this. And there's one final point I make here, and it's related to this toy here, and I'll try and get rid of the Winged Thomas, and I'll swap it out for something else. Maybe you'll know where this is going. Or maybe it's going to cause a bit of a train wreck there. And if I get this Thomas here onto the tracks, and I'm not sure whether a set that looked like, and it's going to be a train wreck, isn't it? Yep, sorry about that. I'll just turn the camera off and do it right. Okay, I've got some normality going on here, I hope. Yeah, if I see something like this, it reminds me of that dream sequence in... I've just totally forgotten the episode or the film. But I never saw a set like that. That Golden Thomas is disturbing me here. I'll put Golden Thomas on the inside rails. I can do this because I'm magical. Okay, now high-speed Streamlining Thomas is going wonky on me. Is that okay, or is it just the weird Trackmasterness, jumpiness that you would get on that tighter curve? I think that's okay. Okay, it's being very Trackmaster 2 on me now, but hey, we'll leave it like that. Yeah, so to get to my point here, you know, if you're looking at things to keep in box and collect, yeah, or maybe I'll give you some ideas, because maybe it's really the toy gold of the future, as the Golden Thomas lays on his side. I don't think that Golden Thomas like being outclassed by that Streamlining Thomas. So maybe the real smart thing to do with these toys is never unbox them. Try to get the ones which are a little bit special. You bought them for, let's say, $10, $15, maybe $20 where I live, and in the future, in only a couple of years' time, you can flog them online for multiple hundreds of dollars. $100, $200, $500, whatever you want.